Hello fellow Hunters of the Blue and welcome to my channel. Today I have one of those tricks that are a total game changer. Freehand is really intimidating and most people avoid it out of fear of ruining their miniatures. What if I told you there is a safe way of sketching and planning freehand that is completely free of any consequence? Well, there is, and it's so obvious that you will wonder why you didn't think of it before. You use these. What are these? Watercolors. Watercolors are special in the sense that they are not a permanent medium. You can always wash them off, especially over non-absorbent substrates like plastic, and acrylic paint is essentially just that, plastic. You don't believe me? Let me demonstrate it using one of my most precious painted miniatures. Just to demonstrate how powerful watercolors are for this, here we have a really time-consumed painted model, something that I honestly just don't want to ruin, and I'm going to try and ruin it. We're going to leave this to dry. Okay, this is now dry, and I'm just going to take some clean water and wipe it off. Just like that. And no residue whatsoever. Can you see the potential of this medium? Sketching over shaded and highlighted areas without any consequences is quite OP. Now let's put him back in the cabinet, shall we? I've had this old Van Gogh box of watercolors for over a decade. It was affordable, around 20 euros, but you can do even cheaper and buy just a single tube or pan, these things, of white watercolor. That's essentially all you're ever going to need, and you can get that for 2 or 3 euros. I will still leave a link in the description where you can find the updated version of the set that I have in case you want to get it for some reason, as well as a link to a cheap white watercolor. So let me show you how I use this to paint some amazing looking checkers and the Deathwing symbol over my Deathwing Terminator. Let's get cracking. So we have our Terminator here, and it's completely finished. You saw me paint it in the past video, and if you didn't, go watch it. And I've wanted to make some checker patterns on this fist since I finished it, but we are always hesitant about that because it's already painted and you don't want to ruin it, we've all been there, including me. So what I will do is use watercolors, white in this case, to sketch this checker pattern, and then I will just fill it, which is easier. So let's see if we can sketch it out using watercolors and save us a lot of trouble. I'm going to divide that in half. This is white over bone, but you can clearly see it. It's small, it's light, but it's very easy to see what you're doing. And again, remember, these lines are just going to disappear after we're done with it. And if I don't like this, imagine I don't like this line, I can just erase it. Just like that. Boom. And it's no longer there. I'm trying to find a pattern that makes sense with the shape of this fist. So I'm going to start with this corner, seems like a good point. And now let's do the other direction. In this case, I want them to follow the shape of the fist. If you want to use this using darker colors because you just can't see it well or whatever, I would advise you do a layer of satin varnish over it before you go and do this, because although you can erase the paint, some pigments are quite staining, especially darker ones, and you really don't want to stain your paint job. Basically, that's it. What I will do is, this line's a little bit too thick, so I'm just going to make it smaller, just erase it a little bit. Just easier if we don't have that such a big accumulation of pigments there. And I want my checkers to be red, so I'm going to go with the best red in the world, Mephisto red. And yes, this is obviously difficult. It's not going to make this process easier, but what it's going to do is make it cleaner, because we're not sketching with red and leaving thick red lines that we afterwards have to cover using bone color, which covers really poorly, and it's going to be a pain in the ass. And especially since this is already shaded and everything, which just makes it worse. Now it's just a matter of filling in all of the squares, following the lines really carefully, overlapping them just a teeny tiny bit, so the squares meet together and leave a super clean checker pattern without any mess to clean up later, hopefully. And that is the checker pattern completely filled in. The guidelines really make it just like painting by numbers, and the lines are actually really subtle, but we can always take them off. Just like that. Just like magic. Those lines just go away. Some of the red might lift off if it was over some watercolor, but it's nothing that we can just fix really easily. Remember, when you're doing lines, it's easier to do lines that are vertical. So orientate your model so you are making vertical movements instead of horizontal movements, which are more difficult. And now we just have to edge highlight all of this using the same colors as we did for the armor. In my case, I'm going to use White Rider Red and Towlight Ochre. The fist and the knee pad are finished with some nice edge highlights, and look how clean that looks, and I didn't have to use any of the bone colors to fix it, just careful application of red, that's all. And now we are going to do the same with the Deathwing symbol. So what I'm going to do is start by marking the middle of the symbol, just like that. You want the sword to go up to about there. Now I need to mark the crossguard and the top of the wings, which are the same line. I highly recommend you use some reference for this. The symbols look complicated, but they have some design elements that are, once you notice them, are really easy to follow. And now I'm going to do like a semicircle. I'm not really happy with the shape of the wings, so I'm going to fix it. And I can actually erase the other line if it's bothering me, so I don't get confused. Again, we have infinite amount of erasability. The body of the sword starts to taper onto the tip at the very same place that the wings end. As I was telling you, these symbols are designed with intention, and if you find those details, they are really easy to draw. Let me do the other semicircle of the wings. About there, they look nice. I need to define the space between the wings and the sword. And now marking the wing partitions. And also need to mark the middle of this wing. And now make the gaps on the wings. It has 3 gaps and 4 solid bits. Just painting the gaps white till I'm happy with the partition. Now in this case, I want as little trace lines there as possible, so I'm just going to erase them. As simple as that. As we've been talking about, this is the absolute superpower of watercolors. I can just erase anything I want. Just going to leave the outer sections and erase any of the middle bits. Just leave like a trace line. It's that easy. And as we've done before, now it's just a matter of filling in the gaps. Very carefully. But those lines really help. And remember, some of that red might disappear once we clean the lines. So in this case, I'm trying to cover almost all of them, so I don't have to erase them. But it's so much easier when we have something underneath to work with. Now I'm going to clean some of the lines. For example, I had that filled with white. I'm just going to lift that white up very carefully. I want to touch as little as the red as possible. So instead of just going over like a madman, I'm going to take my time and lift this off very carefully. So I disturb the red as little as possible. Remember, if some of the red gets lifted off, which can happen, just go back with the red and just fix all those small inconsistencies. With everything cleaned off, it's now time to paint the break on the sword of the Deathwing, and for this I'm just going to use a screaming skull. Just like that. And with that, we are done. Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget that if you like my videos and want to help me make them, you can follow me on social media. You have the links to all my social media in the description below and the pinned comment of this video. Share and like this video, but most importantly, there is Patreon and channel members. Patrons and members allow me to do all the cool videos that I want to make, and most importantly, they allow me to release them all for free here on YouTube. Perks includes access to an amazing Discord community full of lovely people, early access to some of the videos, and now also private one-on-one online tutorings. You have 2-tier options for those, 45 minutes and 3 hours a month. They are filling fast, so if you want to have a private tutoring with me, don't hesitate and join now. Help me and my family and join the list of the coolest persons in the planet, including Flo, Janner, Mark Bellencoop, Terry Denham, Robert Smith, Terrinosaur, Jose Navarro, Heather Amster, Paul Goodwick, Stefan Franiate, Giovanni Constanza, Biom, Howard Hotville, Thomas Ostergaard, Painting Peter, Javi Mota, Christophe Moret, Bartholomew Cahuza, Victor Domen, Nicolas Furnell, Mick Gallagher, Felix Franke, Brendan Smith, Alfredo Phillips, Tim Uchida, Stephanie Owl, Nick DeMau, David Sutherland, Roger Nelson, Oscar Jonathan Thomberg, Dan Mako, Cristalios, Carlos Rivera, Jamie Milligan, Kevin Mian, Darcy Farrar, Chris Fivey, Samuel, Natius Maximus, Arundel, Gareth Smith, Mark Atkinson, Mark Jarvis, Joe Simpson, Charles Armintans, GeForce, Dr. B, Leonard Lindemann, Kieran Murthel, and Kevin Sulas. And as for me, I will catch you in the next one. Bye.